The heck happened to Warner Brothers? One of the oldest studios in Hollywood, not the oldest. It's tied with Disney, being founded in 1927. It's turning 100 in 2023, which is this year, the recording of this video. And much like it parallels Disney, which I think Disney has been their chief rivals for most of their collective existences. But what happened? Warner Brothers was the anti-Disney in many ways. It was the more mature, willing to be more mature, yet also still remain family friendly in the areas that counted. Their philosophy wasn't let's make family friendly entertainment, it's let's make entertainment for quite literally all audiences. There was something for everybody from Warner Brothers, and now it feels like their catalog is suffering the same way that Disney's is, as I talked about in the Disney video. Just an overwhelming flow of wokeness, of a lack of creativity, of just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. I don't know. I don't remember what points I made in the 100th anniversary videos of Disney and Warner, but I might end up reiterating some of those points here. Honestly, this was a cool studio, and it struggled financially for most of its existence, really. It's been bought and sold more times than you can count. It struggled for years, but they've had hits, and they've produced hits for TV and with movies and cartoons. Their cartoons were world class. Original Looney Tunes were so good. To this day, I'm still a devoted fan of Looney Tunes, 100%. I look at new Looney Tunes stuff to see if it's up to par. The most recent iteration is Looney Tunes Cartoons. I think it's pretty good. I think it has the spirit. It's the closest to the old, doing it the old style in the modern day that we'll get, although it's going a little bit past the time period I like art style wise. I can forgive that. It's fine. I still think it's fairly entertaining, and so I like to give it the benefit of the doubt. It's not perfect. They got rid of the guns, but they kept explosives, don't you worry. But they got rid of the guns because current Warner leadership, or the leadership that was around, because there's been a leadership shift with the whole Discovery buyout, were cowards. So they got rid of guns. Gonna be on PC, and but it's decent. I hear they might be rebooting Tiny Toon Adventures. That'll be interesting. I might tune into that. I checked out the Animaniacs reboot, and it was decent. I can't really say anything terrible about it as far as I saw. But, well, actually, yeah, there were a couple of things about it that weren't great. It was a bit on the woke side in some areas, but it wasn't. They didn't lay it on thick. I think it still felt like the old Animaniacs. At least they made an effort to make it seem like it was. I don't know if it's still going or not. To be honest with you, I don't think it is. I don't think it was the hit that they had hoped. And so we'll have to see with Tiny Toon Adventures if that ends up being a mess. I'm sure it will. But they're doing a new Superman series that I just saw. Ugh, it looks awful. Is it something like Superman and his friends? Why? Why can't they leave Jimmy Olsen alone? Why can't they? I sound like Porky Pig there. Why can't they leave Jimmy Olsen alone? For those of you who don't know, they race swapped Jimmy Olsen. He's black now. So I'm being told, as a viewer, that Jimmy Olsen being a ginger, Caucasian ginger, is a bad thing. For some reason. I can't relate to Jimmy Olsen. And have you ever noticed they've been race swapping gingers lately? It really makes you think, doesn't it? It really makes you think. It really makes you think. It makes me think that they're just not good people. Because I'm telling you, this thing makes no sense. The first time they did it was in Supergirl. They made him from being a meek, kind of geeky Lois Lane assistant to being this ultra buff, chiseled black dude. And now they're doing it again. Jimmy Olsen isn't black, guys. That's a horrible fan fiction that they're doing, and it does no service to me as a Superman fan, as a DC Comics former fan in many ways. I'm becoming a former fan because of all the crap they're pulling. You're not endearing me to the brand. You're not making me, as a black man, feel good about this character. You're insulting me. Stop insulting me. Stop insulting your audience. Stop insulting the people who have been watching your stuff for years and enjoying it and trying to get a quote-unquote new audience. This thing, it's a small thing, and people are like, well, you're nitpicking about it. I'm like, oh, trust me, it's going to be a woke fest. That's their MO. DEI is Warner Brothers' MO now. Let's rewind the clock back a little bit to 1992 and Batman the Animated Series, also the year of my birth. Subsequently, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think greatness happens to come from 1992. All jokes aside, Batman the Animated Series, I got the complete series on Blu-ray this Christmas. It is multiple discs. I think it's about 8 discs total. I've been watching through season 1, and first of all, if you're a fan of the animated series and you don't get that, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. It is phenomenal. It looks great. I don't know what they did to digitally restore it, but it looks spectacular. It is wonderful. It is possibly the best way to watch that show. As I've been watching it, and I'm going to do a review of it at some point potentially. I made a video on Instagram talking about the potential of me making a review of season 1. I'll have to wait and see when I'm done. You'll notice the characters are as faithful to the comic books as they can, but they have their own identity in terms of personalities, in terms of origins. They tweak some things here and there, but rarely ever do they race or gender swap anybody. I don't think they did. I think they're all who they were intended to be, and they added original characters like Harley Quinn, who became a success overnight, and now who they're butchering. What they're doing now is saying you can't enjoy Batman, Superman, so on and so forth, unless there is a variant that corresponds with your identity, either racially, sexually, whatever. You can't identify with those characters unless they are just like you in every possible way. It is so insulting. I don't know about you guys, but I take insult to the fact that classic characters are being redone for the sake of DEI and not for anything meaningful. You're not creating new original characters that meet those quotas. Oh no. You're taking established characters who you think people don't care about, and you're doing that. That's the thing. They're like, oh, nobody cares about Jimmy Olsen. These people don't read comics. They don't care about the medium. They don't care about the characters. They're just like, oh, let's find a side character nobody cares about, and we'll race swap them and make them how we want them to be. I'm trying to not be furious just thinking about it. But it's insulting. It's so insulting. And that's one of Warner Brothers' biggest problems. Now, a lot of people, myself included, have looked at the things that David Zaslav, the new CEO of Warner Discovery, have done, all the cuts that he's made. And they think, boy, this is going to be good. But then you look at the slate of what they're doing with DC. They're giving it all to James Gunn, which is terrible. And then, on top of that, they have the new Batman, but they're also keeping elements of the Snyderverse that don't make sense to keep. They're getting rid of all the other elements of it, and then they're completely rebooting some things. Like they're rebooting Superman. I'm hearing it's a black Superman, and if it is, I'm going to have a conniption fit. I'm so tired. I am tired of this. I'm sorry to say, Superman isn't black. There are black variants of Superman that they've created. They're not very good. But they're going to try to make him Clark Kent in black. Why? Why? I'll tell you why. It's because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is most likely one of their mission statements. It's to gain favor with well, no, it's not going to gain favor with China, because China does not want that. No black Superman in China. But they're playing these stupid DEI games. And unlike Disney, stuff falls through the cracks that really isn't that woke. But unfortunately, it's still there, and it's still there in abundance, and it's still a goal. They're just slightly less militant about it than Disney, from what I can tell. That might change with this Discovery merger. I don't really know. Hopefully there's somebody there to say, listen, we need to do the opposite of what Disney's doing, and we can gain their audience. They used to have so many good franchises. Like I said, Batman the Animated Series is one. I mean, you can go all the way back to their movies with Casablanca and The Big Sleep, I think, is one. Is Big Sleep Warner Brothers? Hang on, let me check that, because I think that might be wrong. But I'm not sure. Big Sleep. Sorry if you can hear my phone. Also, I want to apologize for my microphone. Yeah, no, that was Warner Brothers. So you got Casablanca, Big Sleep. You've got the classics are a bit fuzzy. The true black and white classics are fuzzy on me. But as far as classic TV, you've got like the Waltons. You've got um, Family Matters. You've got all sorts of sitcoms. I mean, they used to produce sitcoms for CBS and ABC. They had the space and the facilities for it. Just in more modern movies, you've got the original Batman movies with the two Tim Burton ones, and then the horrible ones that came after that. You've got the Donner Superman movies. You've got some of the scary movies like Twister, and I think, was Earthquake them too? Or was that Universal? Or no, was Twister Universal? Twister may have been Warner produced, but I'm getting all of these twisted. I think Twister was Universal, so I apologize if that's the case. But anyways, you've got a slate of classic movies. All you have to do is Google them. All of these movies were either based on books or original screenplays or something creative, and they appealed to either more mature audiences or general audiences. There was no special interest group pleasing. Now, some people are going to try to argue Family Matters was geared specifically towards black people because it was a black family. I would disagree. There may have been a thought that we want to do something for black families, but it ended up drawing in general audiences from as many places as it could. It was wildly successful. So you've got all of these things, and then you get into the new millennium. Cartoon Network is going strong, and they're producing all sorts of original series, which I watched religiously as a kid. So they're going super strong with Cartoon Network and producing all sorts of original cartoons, but they're also getting cartoons from overseas and anime, specifically with Toonami. So you've got that on their front. That's their advantage over Disney and Nickelodeon. They pretty much introduced anime. At least they popularized it in the early 2000s. And then you got all this momentum riding high, and then you get to the 2010s. Things are okay, and then you get to 2016, and things go... And now, cratered. Because now, again, wokeness and DEI. And I know what some of you are probably thinking. Oh, why is he hammering on about this wokeness and DEI? They're not that big of a deal. Really? Because that's their mission statements. They've come out and made statements saying that they want to produce content. Many of their directors and writers, they want to be more diverse and inclusive. And then you might be saying to yourself, well, what's wrong with that? The problem is that diversity and inclusion happen naturally. If you think of a story first, and then you go through casting, you hire people who are naturally diverse and talented. But what they're doing is they're forcing quotas. They are forcing quotas. Disney's doing it. Warner Brothers is doing it. Paramount is doing it. Sony is doing it. Universal is doing it. They're all doing it. They're forcing people in based on arbitrary things like who they are attracted to and their skin color. And they're putting that at the forefront of their storytelling, if you can even call it that anymore. That's the most important thing, because they want people to feel included and welcomed. But what's insulting to me about that is that they're assuming that everything that came before this initiative that they're doing, everything that came before wasn't. That's the presumption. So you look back at Family Matters, well, they were a little too white for a black family because they were a little too suburban. Screw you. Family Matters was tremendous. It was a true family sitcom of a good moral family. And we will never see something like that again. Certainly not from Warner or Disney. Absolutely not from Disney. Warner, it's possible in the future, depending on what they're open to. But that's what they need. And I'm going to get now to the point of what do they do going forward? What happened to them? They went woke. That's the simple answer. What do they need to do to move forward? Not be woke. That's the simple answer. But the more complicated answer is they need to produce things that people want to watch. And they need to understand that people do not want to watch stuff that is pushing this fake virtue signaling identity politics nonsense, because it's not genuine, folks. I'm going to tell you with 100% certainty, this is not genuine. This is not being done. When the studio executives sign off on these things, they're not doing it because they fully get behind it. They're doing it because they think they see dollar signs, but there are no dollar signs to be had there. This stuff is bleeding money left and right. Millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. So they need to get rid of it. If they're going to insist on having it, shrink it down to small independent projects. And they can't use existing properties to do it. It has to be all experimental. That's going to be the key factor, I think, for every studio, is they have to make original content that's DEI and woke, and then see if it stands on its own. Don't use any existing properties, any existing characters. Just make your own and have it stand on its own. And if it doesn't, then that will be the nail in the coffin. And you could say, okay, we're done with this. We are going to hire people based on their merits. If they happen to be black, if they happen to have a different non-straight sexual identity, then so be it. But we're not going to push them to the forefront because of that. We're going to tell stories based on what people can do as actors. We're not going to base who we hire as actors and as writers and as all of these on these arbitrary traits. Because odds are, if we hire them based on something like that, as opposed to their actual skill, you're going to get garbage television and garbage films and garbage cartoons. That's what Warner needs to do. I also think, and I've said this before, I believe I said this in the 100th anniversary video, they need to rename HBO Max to Warner Brothers Max. As far as marketing is concerned, way better name. It's like they're scared of their own name. They're scared of their own iconography. Having it be called HBO Max doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You've got HBO still, and you've got HBO Max. What does HBO stand for? I don't know. I haven't looked it up. I'm not going to look it up because I already looked up something on screen, and I know that probably annoys some people. But I know using HBO is kind of a dumb name. Whereas Warner Max makes way more sense. You don't even have to be Warner Brothers. Just call it Warner Max. Create a new logo for it based on the old Warner Brothers shield. Or just call it Warner Brothers Max. Most people know what a Warner Brothers property is. And I think they feel like most people don't know what a Warner Brothers property is. So they're like, yeah, we'll just call it HBO. It's a little bit more familiar. We'll just make it an extension of HBO because HBO is a successful network. I don't think it's smart. I think they need to rename it. If they're going to go all in on the streaming thing, and it looks like they're going to, they need to do that. Selling off the CW was another good choice because that's apparently what they've done. CW was terrible. CW was the worst decision. Now, initially, you thought, okay, you're going to get UPN and the WB combining. They both have good programming. We're going to see a lot of more new family-friendly sitcoms. We're going to see all this stuff. No, it just became teenage rom-com or teenage romantic dramas. Really cheesy, really stupid. The DC superhero shows all devolved into that, and then identity politics in their later half. The Arrowverse, as it was established, looked like it was going to be cool. You know, the Flash, when it first started, was really cool. Arrow, when it first started, was really cool. Wasn't too keen on Supergirl. Because from right out of the gate, it was like, eh. And then you had the abomination known as Batwoman. The less said about that, the better. And you have Black Lightning, which is a hero I care about, but I couldn't bring myself to watch it because I know what they're going to do with that character. And it just is going to make my blood furiously boil because it's going to be so woke. And I know it is. In fact, I don't think it's continued. I think it was canceled. But all of that turned to garbage and then it got canceled because CW's ratings were in the absolute toilet. They're going to say, oh, well, you know, it's because of streaming. No, it's because your shows were terrible. People were tuning in for that. I had an entire group of friends that they would come over and we would watch Arrow together around the second season. People aren't talking about it anymore. People fell off the wagon. And then I had a friend who was a Flash fan, and we all watched the Flash trailer together. And he was super excited about it, and he watched it for a while, and then just fell off. Everybody just fell off the show because it became terrible. They started letting anybody and everybody write for it, it looks like. And it just became terrible. So they need quality control. That's one thing if they're going to do these shows. They need more sitcoms. I think that's going to be a winner. If they can do good family-friendly sitcoms, if they can learn to write those and have good actors for those that nobody's heard of but have talent, they could make it work. But they need to be willing to take that risk, and they're not allowed to do that. Or at least they're not allowing themselves to do that. They're wanting to play it safe, because that's another problem with Warner Brothers as well as other Hollywood studios is they want established brands. They want to play it safe. That's why they did Velma. Ugh. Ugh. Disgusting. Again, another one of the less said about it, the better. I've already made a video about it over on Rumble. But they want established franchises that people know, and that's what they use as a vehicle to experiment. And that is a horrific way. That is a horrific way to do a show. Established franchise means expectations on the part of the audience. Your audience sees an established franchise, they know what to expect. If you market it as a part of a universe that already exists, but with new characters, different timeline, different setting, different theme, that could work. But there's also certain rules within those universes that people expect not to be broken, that they're breaking all the time. Just look at Star Trek. It's not a Warner Brothers property, but just look at it. Picard and Discovery are both considered awful. Not saying nobody likes them. There's an audience for everything. But they're widely considered garbage by Star Trek fans, and they're not true to the vision of Gene Roddenberry. Because they focused on DEI, they told stories about environmentalism, they made Picard look old and cynical and weak. They made every woman look stronger than him, and him looking like meek and you would never be able to tell he was a starship captain. But that's a side tangent. This is a Warner Brothers video. My point being, Warner Brothers, they've got things they can do, and they've got more hope than Disney. This is the positive thing. I believe they have more hope with Disney, with the purchase, with Discovery having purchased them, and the whole creation of Warner Brothers Discovery. This is another opportunity for them to do it right. If they're going to lean into DEI and wokeness, it's going to torpedo them. It is absolutely going to torpedo them, and they're going to have to sell stuff again. They're already talking about selling DC and just licensing it out. They're talking about selling DC Comics as it stands and just licensing it out. Because it's doing so terrible. Who knows what else they're going to be selling off. And they canceled so many completed films, animations. Everything went to the chopping block. But if they don't replace the stuff that's cut with something of substance, then people won't come back. They've already burned people with that. In some cases, it depends on, what the audience was. A lot of people were upset at some of the stuff they cut. Some of the stuff they cut, I looked at and I said, ugh. They were going to have a Batgirl movie. Ugh. Batwoman 2.0, perhaps? It didn't look good. There were only some promotional stills and some I think some pre-release stuff, but it didn't look at all like it was good. It was already completed, and they scrapped it. And I said, good. They didn't have faith in it, and so they threw it away. More studios need to do that. Don't put it out there and have it lose money because you have a track record in recent years of releasing stuff that is too woke and too samey. So I think they've got a bright future. If they lean into more stuff like the new Looney Tunes they're doing, if they focus on getting people, for the love of all that is holy, getting people who understand DC Comics and who understand the characters and can write the characters as they have been to make shows, They'll do great on that front. They'll rebound. They might even be able to do good in the live action. James Gunn is not the James Gunn thing. I have zero faith in. Zero faith in. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. No, but he did Guardians of the Galaxy. It was so much fun. Guardians of the Galaxy were nobody heroes. Nobody. Very few people knew who they were. Very few people read their comics. I'm not saying they didn't have fans. They did, but the general public had no idea who they were. At most, they had seen Rocket Raccoon from Marvel vs. Capcom 3 at that point. But most people didn't know who they were because they weren't in any other media outside the comics much. So he took a bunch of really nobody heroes and he made them somebodies. But he's working on established heroes now. And the concern that I see from a lot of people is that because he's taking established heroes, he's going to try to approach them the same way he approached Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's not going to work because they're already established. You can't rewrite their characters, but he's going to try. He's going to try to make them woke or to make them more politically correct and include everything. It just... philosophy needs to die in Hollywood, and it's not going to. If you saw the recent Grammy Awards, it's only going to get worse. The recent Grammy Awards was just satanic. Just satanic. So, and I know that's music, but music and Hollywood are like this. They're intertwined. It's not looking good, but I think there's an opportunity. If a voice of reason is listened to at Warner Brothers, they can right this ship and not end up in the same trash fire that Disney's in. They literally cannot afford to fail. They really can't. So here's hoping for the future of Warner Brothers. Instead of saying, what the heck happened to Warner Brothers, hopefully in the future we'll be saying, why the heck is Warner Brothers so good? So let me know what you think down in the comments. What are your thoughts on Warner Brothers as a studio? Past, present, what are your thoughts about their future? Let me know what you think, and I'll be sure to try and respond to comments if I can. Thank you very much, folks. This has been Super Koopa, and I will see you guys next time. God bless. Have a good one. Peace.